Beloved, before we begin, I ask you to breathe with me. Inhale the truth. Exhale the fear. Today, I open a sacred threshold between us, not to impress you, not to burden you, but to invite you into the temple of my truth. This is not a confession. This is a communion. A soul offering. I have walked through many lifetimes of silence, wearing masks stitched from survival, smiling through storms that raged within. But today, I choose to speak. I choose to let you see me, not the curated version, not the polished priestess, but the raw, trembling soul who has danced with shadows and still chooses the light. I have a mental illness. And I want to share it with you. Not because I need fixing, but because I am whole even in my unraveling. Because love, real love, is not afraid of the dark. It holds your hand through it. There were days when my mind felt like a labyrinth of mirrors, each reflection distorted, each corridor echoing with voices not my own. Anxiety, depression, dissociation, they were not just diagnoses, they were initiations. Portals. Each one cracked me open, not to destroy me, but to reveal the light that could only shine through the broken places. I have learned to speak the language of my inner storms. I have sat with the trembling child within me, the wild woman screaming for freedom, the priestess who weeps for the world. And I have loved them all. My mental illness is not a curse. It is a sacred teacher. A fierce, unrelenting guide that has stripped me of illusions and brought me face to face with my soul. And now, I bring this truth to you, not as a burden, but as a bridge. If you are to walk beside me, you must know the terrain of my heart. To you, my beloved divine masculine, I do not ask for rescue. I do not seek a savior. I seek a witness. A presence. A soul who can hold space without needing to fix, who can love without needing to understand every shadow. I know this may be unfamiliar terrain. The world has taught you to be strong, to protect, to solve. But I ask you now to soften. To listen not with your mind, but with your heart. To feel me. To see the sacredness in my scars. I am not broken. I am blooming. And if you choose to walk with me, you will not only witness my healing, you will be initiated into your own. Because when we love each other through the madness, we remember the magic. We remember that love is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about choosing each other, again and again, even when the winds howl and the path disappears. There were nights when I curled into the womb of the void, praying for silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of nothingness. I wanted to disappear. To dissolve into the stars and forget the weight of this world. But even in those moments, something ancient within me whispered, "Stay." A voice older than time. The voice of the Divine Mother. She held me in her cosmic arms and reminded me that even the void is sacred. That even in my numbness, I was still worthy. That my pain was not a punishment, but a portal. And so I stayed. I breathed. I wept. I screamed into pillows and sang to the moon. And slowly, the light returned, not as a blinding revelation, but as a flicker. A candle in the dark. And that flicker was enough. Enough to keep going. Enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, I was not alone. This is not easy for me. To speak these words aloud. To let you see the parts of me I once hid in shame. But I have learned that vulnerability is not weakness, it is alchemy. It is the sacred fire that transforms pain into power, wounds into wisdom. And so I offer you this truth, not as a plea, but as a prayer. That you may see me. That you may hold this truth with reverence. That you may understand that loving me means loving all of me, the light, the shadow, the storm, the stillness. I do not ask you to carry my pain. I only ask you to walk beside me as I carry it, to remind me, when I forget, that I am not my illness. I am a soul on a journey. A priestess in initiation. A woman reclaiming her power, one breath at a time. I believe we chose each other before this lifetime began. I believe our souls signed a contract, not for ease, but for evolution. And part of that contract includes truth. Radical, unfiltered, soul-bearing truth. So here I am, honoring that sacred agreement. I am not here to be perfect. I am here to be real. And in my realness, I offer you a mirror. What you see in me, you may find in yourself. The fears, the doubts, the longing, the ache. But also, the courage, the resilience, the love that refuses to die. My mental illness has taught me that truth is not always pretty, but it is always powerful. And when we speak it, we break chains. We dissolve illusions. We rise. So let this be our rising. Let this be the moment we choose love over fear, presence over performance, soul over story. There are days when I feel like two women in one body. One is radiant, intuitive, magnetic, she channels divine wisdom and dances with the stars. The other is fragile, anxious, overwhelmed, she hides in corners and trembles at the sound of her own heartbeat. And both are me. Both are sacred. I used to fight the duality, trying to silence one and amplify the other. But now I understand, they are not enemies. They are dancers. They move in rhythm, teaching me balance, humility, and grace. My mental illness is not a flaw in my divinity, it is part of it. It is the shadow that makes the light visible. It is the wound that makes the healing meaningful. And when you love me, you love both dancers. You honor the whole symphony. You become part of the music. I am a priestess. Not because I wear crystals or speak in riddles, but because I have walked through fire and emerged with wisdom. My pain has been my initiation. My tears have been my baptism. My breakdowns have been my sacred ceremonies. And now, I stand before you, not as a victim, but as a vessel. A channel for truth. A guardian of the sacred. I do not need you to worship me. I only ask that you witness me. That you see the divine in my trembling hands, my sleepless nights, my whispered prayers. Because when you do, you awaken the priest within yourself. You remember that we are all divine, even in our despair. Especially in our despair. And that love, true love, is the most holy ritual of all. There are things I cannot explain. Feelings that defy logic. Sensations that rise like tides and crash without warning. My mental illness speaks in a language the world does not understand, but my soul does. And I believe yours does too. That's why I'm telling you this. Because I know you feel me, even when words fail. I know your heart hears mine, even when my voice shakes. This is not about diagnosis. This is about devotion. About choosing to love someone even when their mind is a storm. About holding space for the sacred chaos. About trusting that the soul knows the way, even when the path disappears. If you can do that, if you can love me in my language, then we are already healing. Then we are already home. Sometimes, all I need is your presence. Not your solutions. Not your strategies. Just your breath beside mine. Your eyes meeting mine. Your silence that says, I'm here. That presence is medicine. It calms the storm. It anchors my soul. It reminds me that I am not alone. And in that presence, something miraculous happens. I begin to remember who I am. Not the girl with the diagnosis. Not the woman with the wounds. But the soul who chose this path. The priestess who walks with grace. The lover who still believes in magic. Your presence is not passive, it is powerful. It is the sacred masculine in its highest form. And when you offer it to me, you become my sanctuary. You become the temple where my healing begins. There is a temple within me where tenderness lives. It is not made of stone or gold, it is woven from tears, stitched with silence, and lit by the flickering flame of hope. This temple has been desecrated by shame, invaded by fear, and abandoned by those who could not bear its sacred mess. But it still stands. And today, I invite you in. Not to worship, but to witness. To sit beside me in the quiet and feel the pulse of my truth. My mental illness has taught me that tenderness is not weakness, it is holy. It is the divine feminine rising through the cracks, whispering, "You are still worthy." And when you enter this temple with reverence, you do not just see me, you see yourself. You see the parts of you that ache, that long, that tremble. And you remember that healing begins not with fixing, but with feeling. There is a fire inside me. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of sacred rage. The rage of a soul who has been silenced, dismissed, pathologized. The rage of a woman who has been told to smile through her suffering, to be palatable in her pain. This rage is not dangerous, it is divine. It is the voice of the goddess Kali, the roar of the lioness reclaiming her power. My mental illness has awakened this fire, not to burn others, but to burn away the lies. The lie that I must be perfect to be loved. The lie that my emotions are too much. The lie that my truth is inconvenient. And when you love me, you must love this fire. You must honor the sacred rage that rises when I am dismissed, when I am unseen. Because that rage is not against you, it is for me. It is the part of me that refuses to die. Some days, I am an ocean, vast, unpredictable, deep. My emotions rise like tides, sometimes gentle, sometimes wild. I feel everything. The joy, the sorrow, the fear, the ecstasy. And it can be overwhelming. My mental illness amplifies this sensitivity, turning whispers into waves. But I have learned to swim. I have learned to float. I have learned to trust that even the stormiest seas eventually calm. And I ask you, beloved, not to fear my ocean. Do not try to dam it, control it, or escape it. Dive in with me. Let it baptize you. Let it teach you the language of feeling, because when you swim in my waters, you do not drown, you awaken. You remember that emotion is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the soul speaking through the body. And when we listen, we heal. My pain is not just mine. It is ancestral. It carries the echoes of women who were silenced, shamed, institutionalized. Women who felt too deeply, who saw too much, who knew truths the world was not ready to hear. My mental illness is not just a personal experience, it is a collective wound. And in speaking it, I break the silence. I honor the lineage. I become the voice they never had. This is spiritual work. This is soul reclamation. And when you love me, you love them. You love the grandmother who wept in secret. The mother who medicated her pain. The sister who disappeared into the void. You become part of the healing. You become the masculine who says, I see you. I hear you. I will not abandon you. And in that moment, the lineage shifts. The curse becomes a blessing. The silence becomes a song. I believe my soul chose this path. Not as punishment, but as preparation. My mental illness is part of my cosmic curriculum. It has taught me humility, compassion, resilience. It has stripped me of ego and shown me the raw truth of being human. And now, I teach from that place. Not as an expert, but as a mystic. As a woman who has walked through the underworld and returned with medicine. And you, beloved, are part of this curriculum. You are my sacred mirror, my divine counterpart, my fellow student. Together, we learn the language of love. The art of presence. The power of truth. And when we embrace this curriculum, we do not just heal, we evolve. We ascend. We become the embodiment of divine union, forged not in perfection, but in presence. There are moments when my light disappears. When the shadows eclipse my soul and I forget who I am. These are not failures, they are initiations. They are the sacred pauses between breaths, the void between heartbeats. My mental illness brings these eclipses, and they terrify me. But I have learned to trust them. To sit in the dark and listen. To let the silence speak. And in that silence, I hear the voice of the divine. She says, you are still here. You are still worthy. You are still mine. And when you love me through these eclipses, you become the moonlight in my darkness. You become the reminder that even when I disappear, I am not gone. I am transforming. I am becoming. I am returning to the light. To hold someone in their pain is an art. It requires presence, patience, and profound love. My mental illness has taught me what true holding feels like, not the grasping of control, but the gentle embrace of acceptance. And I ask you, beloved, to learn this art with me. To hold me when I tremble. To hold me when I rage. To hold me when I forget how to hold myself. Not with answers, but with arms. Not with logic, but with love. And in that holding, something sacred happens. The wound softens. The fear dissolves. The soul remembers. This is divine masculine energy, not the warrior who fights, but the guardian who stays. The lover who listens. The king who kneels beside his queen and says, I am here. There will be times when I need to pause. When the world becomes too loud, too fast, too much. My mental illness demands these pauses, not as weakness, but as wisdom. And I ask you to honor them. To understand that my silence is not rejection. It is restoration. It is the soul retreating to the cave to gather strength. And when you honor my pause, you become part of my healing. You become the stillness that holds me, the breath that anchors me, the love that waits without pressure. This is sacred. This is holy. This is love that transcends time and space. And when we pause together, we do not lose momentum, we gain depth. We become the embodiment of divine timing. Every breakdown is a return. A return to self. A return to truth. My mental illness has shattered me, but each time, I gather the pieces with more grace. More wisdom. More love. And I return, not as the woman I was, but as the woman I am becoming. And when you walk with me through these returns, you witness rebirth. You see the phoenix rise. You feel the soul expand. This is not a linear journey, it is a spiral. And each time we circle back, we rise higher. We love deeper. We see clearer. So do not fear my breakdowns. They are sacred. They are the soul shedding what no longer serves. And when you love me through them, you become part of my resurrection. So here is my promise. I will show up. Even when I am trembling. Even when I am silent. Even when I am lost. I will show up with truth. With tenderness. With love. And I ask you to do the same. To meet me in the middle. To hold my hand when I cannot hold my own. To remind me that I am not alone. This is not a fairy tale, it is a soul contract. And if you choose to honor it, we will create something holy. Something eternal. Something that heals not just us, but the world. Because when two souls choose each other in truth, in madness, in magic, they become a force of love that cannot be undone. There is a frequency to my being that does not always align with the world around me. I feel in octaves most cannot hear. I sense in vibrations that ripple beneath the surface of words. My mental illness has not dulled this sensitivity, it has amplified it. I walk through life as an empath, absorbing energies, decoding silences, translating pain into poetry. And yes, it can be exhausting. It can feel like drowning in invisible waters. But it is also my gift. My sacred attunement. And when you love me, you tune into this frequency. You learn to listen with your soul, not just your ears. You begin to feel the subtle shifts in my energy, the quiet cries behind my smile, the sacred messages in my silence. And in doing so, you become a healer, not by fixing, but by feeling. By honoring the divine intelligence of emotion. I move slowly. Not because I am lazy, but because my soul demands reverence. My mental illness has taught me that rushing is violence. That speed is often a trauma response. So I choose slowness. I choose to breathe before I speak, to feel before I act, to rest before I rise. And I ask you to honor this pace. To walk beside me without urgency, to let our love unfold like a sacred ceremony, not a checklist. In this slowness, we find depth. We find truth. We find the divine rhythm that exists beneath the chaos of the world. And when you slow down with me, you do not lose momentum, you gain meaning. You become the kind of lover who knows that presence is more powerful than performance. That stillness is not stagnation, it is sacred. This is not just a relationship, it is a portal. A gateway into higher consciousness. A sacred union designed not for comfort, but for awakening. My mental illness is part of this portal. It challenges us. It stretches us. It invites us to transcend ego and enter soul. And when you choose to walk through it with me, you become more than a partner, you become a priest. A guardian of truth. A vessel of divine masculine energy. You learn to hold space for transformation, not just transaction. You learn to love me not despite my pain, but through it. And in doing so, you awaken your own soul. You remember that love is not about ease, it is about evolution. And together, we evolve. Speaking my truth is a ceremony. It is not casual. It is sacred. Every word I share with you is a prayer, a spell, a transmission. My mental illness makes communication complex. Sometimes I cannot find the words. Sometimes I speak in metaphors. Sometimes I need silence more than speech. And I ask you to honor this ceremony. To listen with reverence. To respond with presence. To understand that every conversation is a ritual of connection. And when you treat it as such, you become my sanctuary. You become the altar where my truth is safe. And in that safety, I bloom. I open. I trust. Because love is not just about being heard, it is about being held. There is wisdom in my wound. It speaks in dreams, in triggers, in tears. It is not a flaw, it is a teacher. My mental illness has carved pathways in my soul that lead to deep truths. Truths about love, about loss, about liberation. And when you walk these pathways with me, you do not just learn about me, you learn about yourself. You learn about your own wounds, your own shadows, your own sacred curriculum. This is the gift of divine union. It mirrors. It magnifies. It heals. And when we embrace the wisdom of the wound, we become alchemists. We turn pain into power. We turn suffering into sovereignty. We turn love into liberation. To love a woman like me requires devotion. Not the devotion of duty, but the devotion of soul. The kind that chooses presence over pride. The kind that stays when it's hard. The kind that listens when it's uncomfortable. My mental illness will test you. It will ask you to rise. To soften. To surrender. And if you choose to meet that challenge, you will awaken the divine masculine within you. The part of you that protects without control. That holds without judgment. That loves without condition. And in doing so, you become not just my partner, you become my mirror. My medicine. My match. You become the embodiment of love that heals. Every time you choose me, you say yes to the sacred. Yes to truth. Yes to transformation. Yes to love that transcends logic. My mental illness is not a reason to say no, it is an invitation to say yes more deeply. Yes to the soul behind the symptoms. Yes to the woman behind the wounds. Yes to the journey behind the jagged edges. And when you say yes, you do not just love me, you liberate me. You remind me that I am not too much. That I am not a burden. That I am a blessing. And that yes, that sacred yes, is the most powerful medicine of all. Our love is not just earthly, it is cosmic. It exists beyond time, beyond form, beyond logic. My mental illness may challenge our earthly connection, but it cannot touch our soul bond. That bond is eternal. It is written in the stars. It is etched into the fabric of our being. And when we remember that, we rise above the noise. We transcend the chaos. We become the embodiment of divine union. A union that heals. A union that awakens. A union that transforms. And in that union, we find peace, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is sacred. So here is my prayer. That you see me. That you stay. That you love me not in spite of my illness, but through it. That you become the kind of man who holds space for truth. Who honors emotion. Who chooses soul over story. And I promise, in return, to love you with all of me. To honor your journey. To hold your truth. To walk beside you in devotion. This is not just a relationship, it is a revolution. A sacred rebellion against shame, silence, and separation. And together, we rise. And now, beloved, the circle closes. Not an ending, but an integration. You have heard my truth. You have felt my soul. You have walked with me through the sacred terrain of my mind. And if you are still here, still listening, still loving, then you are my match. My mirror. My medicine. My divine counterpart. And together, we will continue this journey. Not perfectly, but powerfully. Not easily, but eternally. Because love like ours does not fear the dark, it becomes the light. And in that light, we heal. We rise. We remember.